Good morning, everyone. It's the Rangers Review morning briefing. It is Wednesday, February 5th. We're a couple of days post-window. I'm joined by Chris Jack. Chris, have you cooled down? Are you more relaxed than you were on? You were pretty relaxed on Monday, but have you relaxed a little bit since the madness of transfer deadline day? Well, it wasn't really mad, was it? Either was it? So, are you all right? Is what I'm trying to ask.
Yes, I am fine. No, it wasn't quite. It still turned into a very busy day the other day. There was still
Yep.
there's still enough as always in the world of Rangers. There was still enough on the go, still enough to keep us busy, but not as I think we were busier than people at Ibrox were. Obviously, not a lot of incomings. I know we spoke about that on the show the other night. I think the frustration of how the transfer window ended is still very much seeping through the fan base at present. So I think people are looking forward. It's strange this week not having a midweek game. We've got into such a routine of kind of bouncing from midweek into the weekend and then pressers and then games and follow up. So it's a welcome change not to have one, but it does give people a bit more time to stew, I think, on how the final days of the window unfolded.
Definitely. I don't mind not having a midweek game this midweek, Chris, to be fair. A lot of people are agreeing with you, but it gives us a little bit of time to catch our breath at the Rangers Review. Anyway, we're going to speak today. Some people have seen the squad depth chart we put out yesterday. We're going to speak a little bit about that, trying to answer the question, is Rangers squad stronger post-window compared to when they went into it in December? And we'll also get through some questions. So if you have a particular question you would like Chris or me to answer, then why don't you fire it in the comment section. Right, Chris, let's take a closer look at the Rangers squad. Obviously not to repeat ourselves because we've spoken a fair amount about the transfer window over the past few days, but everyone will know the business that took place by this point. Everyone aware of what Rangers did and what Rangers did not do. This is a look at Rangers squad, and it doesn't include every single player. It doesn't include players who are out on loan earlier from the summer window, the likes of Ben Davies or Jose Cifuentes. Yellow is players who were either signed, only being one, or were promoted from the youth team. Red departed. We'll kind of go through it position by position, and do let us know your thoughts in the comment section. What you think too, whether Rangers are stronger or weaker in terms of their squad. We'll leave the goalkeeping position, Chris, because it's the same. Mason Munn was already kind of in that third spot, wasn't he? Obviously made his debut against Fraser-Bruh. We've spoken a bit about goalkeeping performance recently. I'm sure we will again at some stage. Talk to me about the defence. What stands out? You've lost Adam Devine, who Queen's Park aren't covering a huge proportion of those wages. He's out of contract in the summer. He wasn't part of the first team squad anyway, but he has been in the past, hence why we include him there. Robbie Fraser out to Livingston. He was part of the first team squad. You've added Rafael Fernandez. Casson Weirjo isn't included in there because he's out injured for the season. What stands out about the defensive picture? Because I guess compared to December, you've got Clinton and Ciala, who a lot of people would, I think, put as first choice at the moment in that left centre-back slot if everyone was kind of fit and available.
I think he's the standout. Not quite the standout centre-half. I think John Souttar is still Rangers' best central defender, but Ciala is probably one of the standout stories of the last couple of weeks because he has come in, he's been really solid, he's looked the part. People have asked, why wasn't he included sooner? Why wasn't he given a chance sooner? The manager's obviously decided to take his time with him, to try and give him as much time as possible to settle into the club and into Glasgow and into a new environment and all that kind of stuff. His hand was really forced. Now there was no other centre half option given injuries, given the situation that Rangers found themselves in. And Ciala had to come in, had to do a job, and he has done. I think he can be really proud of himself for the way that he's adapted. And I hope that we see him, even though John Souttar's now back. We expect Elliot Balogun back at some point. Obviously, we need to see what Fernandez is made of. We know that Robin Propper's going to get his share of game time. I'd like to see Ciala get his fair share because we need to see what kind of level he's at. I think he's cemented his place within the squad for this season. Going into next season, is he going to be one of your first two? Is he going to be the first choice backup? Is he going to be the one down from that? Is he going to be someone who you think requires a development loan to go somewhere else and go and try and play 40 games over the course of the campaign? Rangers need to know where he's at come the end of the season. They're only going to know that by giving him as much game time and as many opportunities as possible. So I think the centre half was a big talking point heading into the window, given the injury situation, given the form situation. It was addressed in some degree by Fernandes coming in. It's been addressed better by Nsiala. So encouraged by that. Left back, as it is, Robbie Fraser was not going to get up game time anyway. He had to leave on loan. He had to go and get minutes at Livingston. I think that the pecking order in that position is fairly clear by now. Right back, a position we talked about a lot at the start of the season.
Yeah.
And certainly in the first couple of months of the season, we felt, and we both felt, that it was time for Dujon Sterling to really kick on, to perhaps get more and more minutes, to play more often than not. It happened for a couple of weeks, but then the big fear about Dujon is his robustness. Can he put together the level of performances and the number of games that's required? And you have to say those fears are playing out once again. You look at James Tavernier barely missing a beat over the last couple of months. Sterling nowhere to be seen. It's picks up knocks and just seems to be out for longer than the Rangers need him to be. No real clarity on when he's going to get back. So I think it's been a good couple of months for James Tavernier. I think his form has been good. Got himself a couple of goals. I think his European performances have been good. Playing centre half, he's showed a different, show a different side of his game as well. It's been a good couple of months for James Tavernier. It's not been a good couple of months if you do John Sterling.
Tavernier, actually, I don't think I'd have had him down. Obviously, the argument has always been moving forward and play him higher up the pitch. We saw that under Clement earlier in the season. I don't think anyone had him down as a centre back, but I actually thought against United, he did really well, but he did well against Union too. Covered Robin proper a couple of times. Obviously, he had that goal-saving intervention as well. As it is long-term future, I don't know. But the thing with Tavernier, he had some uncertainty in the summer. He had an injury in the summer, so he missed most of pre-season, and I think that was the first time that's happened in his entire Rangers career, and he has looked better defensively. I agree. Dujon Sterling, I believe, is not far away. He's missed about a month of football since it was that game against Hibs, Chris, wasn't it, which was on January the 5th. But the frustration for Sterling is whether it be that knock or the one he took against earlier in the season. I think it might have been away in the Europa League somewhere, and he had that right back slot for a few games. It was just before the League Cup final, actually, in the game against Tottenham. And then and James Tavernier kind of reassumed that role. So that has been a frustration for him and Clement. I'm sure, again, I just wonder how much... Do you know what I was reading recently, to go a little bit off topic? I was reading about how Liverpool recruited a new manager. And obviously they're quite a well-run club, aren't they? And one of they had 20, 30 criteria for judging managers. And when they went to Arne Slot, they presented this evidence to him, blah, blah, blah. And one of the qualities was player availability. And the point being, the reason I'm bringing that up is that managers also have a responsibility towards that, right? I'm not saying in this specific situation that it's Clement's fault that Sterling is injured, but we don't know, because we're not privy to that information, how well players are managed behind the scenes, the style of football, how that plays into it, whether they're playing different positions. And the injury situation, Clement says it's got better. Has it really got better? I don't know. It feels like players still break down quite consistently. So I don't know. When you look at Sterling and Ridvan as well, players who've had to play different positions, I just wonder if player availability is something that hasn't been brilliant at Rangers, as well as injuries. But and Fernandes in the middle, by all accounts, if you speak to people about the player, he's a profile that Rangers are quite excited by, and kind of demonstrates that, like in Cialo, we've reported in the last few months, Chris, changes to Rangers scouting infrastructure. Their presence in those top 5 leagues is not going to try and sign someone from a first team in the Premier League, because the wages are just too inflated. It's looking at the Premier League 2, the Bundesliga 2, second teams in these top 5 leagues, or players like Fernandes who maybe hadn't played. And I guess, just to throw it back to you quickly on Cialo, he's an example like Chefty of the fact that players need to have an opportunity to sink or swim sometimes. And had he been only bled in with a couple of games here or there before the end of the season, we wouldn't really know where he stands. And I agree with you that he still needs to show more than he's shown so far, because he's only played 5 or 6 games. But I did think the most recent game against, who was it against? Who did Rangers just play the weekend? Ross County, thank you. Too many games. But I did think he seemed to win more in the air than he had against Dundee United away, playing against a physical striker. So Fernandez, very much, I think Rangers hope that in signing a young centre-back who maybe hasn't played many games. I don't think he's as good on the ball as Nsiala, but he's maybe more of a 1v1 defender. He's a bit bigger, more of a physical presence. I think there'll be hope that he can, like Nsiala, step in between now and the end of the season and justify spending money on him kind of in the summer. It's an area that Rangers have needed to spend money in, and the Jose Cordoba pursuit in the summer kind of demonstrated that, I guess.
It's really interesting to see how they actually handle the summer in terms of that position. You've got 5 names on that graphic there. How many of that 5 are secure of their place in the squad next season? Suter, yes. Nsiala, yes. Fernandez has still to show it. Balogun would be surprised if he gets another deal again. I think injuries are starting to catch up with Leon, unfortunately, and there's then a big question over Robin Proper. Can you have someone of his profile and what you put into him not being your first choice or not being one of your first choices? So for me, Suter is, even come a start next season, I think John Suter starts, and you're then looking for a partner for him. Is it going to be Nsiala? Is it going to be someone else? Is it going to be Fernandez? I don't think it'll be Balogun. I think we will see Rangers go back into the market in that area, but who falls out of that, and that's the opportunity that Fernandez and Nsiala have got now.
Yeah.
They can almost make an addition for that second spot. If it's not going to be the second spot, the two of them are then fighting out to be number 3 and number 4 at the minute. Nsiala is obviously ahead of Fernandez just because of what he's done. We need to see more of Fernandez to see what level he's at. But it would leave Rangers with an experienced centre half in John Suter and two younger ones. You would imagine them then go and try and recruit. If it was to be the end for Proper and Balogun, you'd imagine. I know they're changing the transfer strategy and going for younger players with a bit more potential and a bit more resale value. But a big solid experienced centre half, I think, would make a big difference.
Yeah, definitely right. Let's look at the midfield. Obviously, Cole McKinnon wasn't really part of the first team picture this season, Chris, but he was last season, and again he was kind of part of that wider squad. So we've put him in there. He's went on loan to Ayr United. Bailey Rice was already at the club, but made that full first team evolution at the end of the month, in line with other changes to the B team structure. Connor Barron hasn't played much, as Stevie and I spoke about it, or Johnny and I spoke about it recently. I've done too much podcasting to remember, but he kind of probably started over expectation and subsequently has fallen under that expectation a little bit. Rangers are fine in there till the end of the season, aren't they? Diomande and Raskin. I know Raskin's had injury issues in the past, but the last 3-4 months he's been very readily available. Bailey Rice will get minutes too. Any concerns about that area of the pitch? I guess it wasn't really one where you're thinking Rangers need to spend a lot of money because they have Diomande, who they spent money on. They have Raskin, who is still a relatively young player, certainly in terms of minutes played at Rangers. Barron, we know, is a capable squad player who's been a starter for large chunks of this season, and Bailey Rice needs to play football. So while I think you could still make an argument Rangers need more quality in there, I think it makes sense to create a pathway for Bailey Rice, and I don't think you will disagree.
I think those two positions, those kind of 6 and 8 positions, I don't have any real concerns over. When we came on to talk about number 10, I have more fears in that particular area. But Raskin has been arguably Rangers player of the season so far. Has really come onto a game. Had a really stop-start first couple of months of the season. After that unfortunate injury he picked up in the game against Ajax. How different the first couple of months could have been if Rangers had a fully fit and firing Nico Raskin in there rather than someone who was working his way back up and trying to get back up to speed. I think Diomande has been okay. If you have to give him a number, it's probably 6 out of 10. It's certainly not as high as 8. Barron, I think, started the season fairly well, has then had his difficulties of late, and Rice, as you touched on, just needs to play football. Like Inciala, like Fernandez, like Finlay Curtis that will come on to talk about, we just need to see more of Bailey Rice to see what level he's at. Could Rangers improve in that area in the summer? They've already tried by bringing in Lyle Cameron. I would be surprised if they do too much more business. If you've got Raskin, Rice, Diomande, Barron, and Cameron, you look fairly well sorted for those two positions. I say further up the pitch, I do have concerns, but I think in that area, it's fine. Again, someone a bit more of a physical profile would maybe not be a bad thing. Someone that's a bit more of an enforcer or if you like. But
Raskin, Chris, I saw this chat on social media yesterday, but Raskin's your enforcer, isn't he? No, I think you're not having that. I think he is.
I think he's fulfilling that role well. I know you actually wrote a piece about this a few months ago about how Rangers were looking for a different option at number 6. They also went after Jordan at Sevilla, linked with a number of other players. And by Rangers not getting another option in that area, it's really allowed Nico Raskin to grow into that, into that position, into that role. So that partnership between Raskin and Diomande, don't have any concerns over that at all. So I think Raskin, I think he's been Rangers player of the season so far. Diomande, slightly lower key at the start, has come onto a game of late. Certainly European wise has been good. And I say Barron and Rice very much the backup options there, but again need to try and get them minutes as and when possible.
Yeah, I think Diomande, stat for you, Chris, first on Raskin, the highest average of tackles and interceptions in the whole Europa League, which does speak to Rangers' rather end-to-end game in Europe, which, as we've spoken about a lot, I don't think always lends itself to the control they need domestically. But I think he's clearly the best midfielder, definitely off the ball, I think, in the country in terms of the interceptions, the tackles. He makes the ground he covers, and he's improving on it too. And Diomande, you've always seen he's a quality player. It's taken him a bit of time to settle into certain domestic games, but I think the last couple of weeks he's been one of Rangers' better players, and you can see his quality, can't you? When he stands out in an Old Firm game or a Europa League game, I don't think the question is about ability. It's about, what is he being asked to do domestically? Why is that maybe not marrying up as much? But in line with, I think, overall, Rangers have been better in recent weeks, and Diomande has too. Number 10 position. That is not a fantastic list of options Rangers have in there. I think certainly looking long term. And CO, by all accounts, is someone that's quite highly rated in terms of the talent he has, which is why he's been kept instead of being sent out on loan. Obviously came on and looked slightly overawed against Union, but who wouldn't? That's the type of, I think, experience that makes a young player better. Alex Lowry left the club. Getting his wages off the books was a positive of the window for Rangers. That's a whole other discussion about a player who clearly did have the talent, but just never happened at Ibrox. Tom Lawrence, as far as we are aware, the information we have is that he won't be extending his stay at Ibrox, won't be offered the opportunity to extend his stay at Ibrox in the summer, hasn't played much as of late. Nadim Bayrami, Chris, is someone that we've spoken about a little bit. Again, I'm somewhere in the middle with this because I think you can see Bayrami has quality, and I think he has had moments where you've thought he could be a player in big games for Rangers that can make an impact. Thinking of the goal in the League Cup final, he's done well on playing that role against Callum McGregor. Equally, in games where you expect him to stand out more, he's not. And I wonder how much like Diomande, when the ball is going over your head, I think quite a lot domestically, or when Rangers are looking quite direct, how much does that impact the individual / has he just not been very good so far? And there is an argument, I think, to say that certainly if you're looking at goals and assists and kind of the raw return of what you've paid for, he's not standing out enough in run-of-the-mill domestic games. Where do you kind of stand in that number 10 position?
We spoke a lot about it towards the end of last season. Also, the Todd Cantwell debate featured heavily in the last couple of weeks, and then throughout the summer, and then the saga of the Cantwell. Will he go? Won't he go? Yes, he has gone. A few weeks. and it looked like Barami would be an upgrade. But for me, he's one of the big disappointments of the season. You look at the money that Rangers spent on him, when every penny and every pound has to be spent wisely. That was a big investment. That was a big position that Rangers had to fill. They had long enough to try and fill it. I think it got announced like 10, 15 minutes to go of the summer window. So they clearly pursued him for a long time, decided that he was the one that they wanted, spent the money on him, and for me, it's just not worked out. He's not lived up to the billing or lived up to the expectations so far. And the problem with that is the backup options are just not there. So Lowry moved on, but was never going to get a chance anyway. Paul and CO, it's a big ask to say to him, can you go and be the playmaker in this side? Tom Lawrence. Yeah. I think people know my opinion of him by now. I'm not the biggest fan, and it's not a huge surprise that he's going to be allowed to leave the club at the end of the season. If Yanis Hadji was able to move into that area, if you could shift him from left into the middle, I think that would make that look a bit stronger. But you're then causing a bigger issue on the left-hand side, as we'll come on to talk about, because Hadji is needed to play there. So I think we spoke about it in the last couple of days of the window, and also when we did our first show on deadline day. If Rangers could have done anything, I would have liked to have seen it being a wide option that can play on both sides. One to give them a starter on the left and a bit of support to Tierney on the right, and that would allow Hadji to move into a more central area. Perhaps take a bit of pressure off Barami. Is there too much expectation on him? I don't think so, given he's an international player and the money that's been spent. But I think people are right to expect more, because it is an area that I think Rangers have still to. We're 18 months or so into the Clement reign. They've still to really get that number 10 role right.
Yeah, and again, what I'd say about Barami is I wonder how many games he's played consistently in that number 10 spot, because I don't think it's helped him. That he clearly does not suit being a left winger in this system. And I think if it's a transition, he plays sometimes in the left for Albania, but if it's Albania, isn't it? Yeah, he's an Albanian international. But if it's an end-to-end game where there's space, that makes sense. If not, the reason that Hadji I think's worked on the left is because he's two-footed. So while he's not like an electric 1v1 player, although he's played wide for Romania, so he's clearly good enough out there, but he's unpredictable. Whereas if Hadji's only right-footed, he's much easier to defend. If you look at a lot of his assists, especially when he came early into the Rangers team, I'm thinking of Kilmarnock at home and Hibs away, left-footed assists where he's driving to the touchline and creates a bit of space because of that threat that he could cut on his right foot. So I don't think Barami suits it out there. But yeah, I wonder how many games he's actually played consecutively in that number 10 spot and whether that impacts things. It's something we'll be looking at in a bit more detail in the Rangers review in the next couple of weeks. Right-hand side, briefly, Chris, Václav Černý is good at football and scored a lot of goals. He's someone who's a bit of a strange player because he can be on the periphery of games, but you've seen up until now he can impact things pretty significantly. I think he's a really good example of summer recruitment too, because he's short. It's not easy to find a short-term option who's going to settle quickly, who has the quality on a loan deal. Before he was signed in August too, so before the kind of near the end of the window. I think that's because it's not a permanent signing. It maybe hasn't attracted that much praise, but 20 goals and assists from wide areas for Rangers by January is not something that many wingers have done as of late. So I think Černy's a signing that deserves some praise. And then if I throw the left-hand side to you as well, if you've got all those options, it's fine. Obviously, Matondo's gone, Lovelace is gone. Rangers receive a six-figure fee for that, we believe. Kieran Dowell's gone too, on the right, who I believe has started actually pretty well at Birmingham City in his first couple of games. If you have those five players fit with Finlay Curtis and Oscar Cortez, Yanis Hadji, Černý, McCausland, you probably have enough, although I agree with you. I think that's an area where you still need another out-and-out piece of quality because Cortez hasn't played, shown himself able to play consistently. Does a lot depend on whether Cortez can finally get a run of games between now and the end of the season, because he has come back. The issue has not been not recovering; it's been recurring injuries. Mm-hmm. So I guess the question would be, what is going to stop that? Because I'm making my point too long here, sorry, but he started away at Motherwell, did he? And I just think, again, not being an expert in player availability and how you bleed players in, but it felt like almost that he was put up to 100 too quickly, and then he was out again suddenly. I don't know. I'm not saying that with any particular knowledge of the situation, but it just feels strange that he's broken down so consistently after coming back into the squad.
There's quite a lot of riding on Oscar Cortez over the second half of the season, and that's probably not a good thing given what we've seen over the last 12 months. I think when he has played, there's been flashes there. There's been moments where you think there's definitely something there that can be worked on, but the injury situation, it's not a one-off now. Obviously missed a lot of football after he came to the club last season. Was then injured at Hearts on opening day of the season. Missed some big games after that, and he's never really been able to put together a run of games since then. And given the discussion and everything that's been spoken about the injury situation over last season, it doesn't take a lot for fans to say he's a crock and write him off. So he's got a big point to prove, just to show that he actually can be available often enough, and that people can trust him to turn up and play. Never mind trust him to turn up and play at the required level. So he has to show that first and foremost. Even when he comes back in, even if he doesn't provide 10 goals and assists over the next 10 games, he has to show that he can play 10 games first and foremost, and that would give people a bit more faith in him, and hopefully he can show in that time that he is at the level. So I would like, given everything that surrounds him, I would have liked to see Rangers try and get someone. I know they tried, but also couldn't get a deal over the line for a wide player. I just think you look at those left and right, they're short. Tierney stands out as on that right hand side. There's not enough behind him. Hadji stands out on the left hand side. There's not enough behind him. So you're putting a lot of pressure on Cortez coming in and actually being able to play the games and play at the level, and putting a bit of pressure on Finlay Curtis as well, who has looked good. He's made the most of his chances. He's obviously signed his new contract, and I'd like to see him get some more game time. Arguably, like to see him get game time ahead of Ross McCausland. I think we know where McCausland is. We know what McCausland can do. We know what his level is by now. We don't know what the ceiling is for Finlay Curtis yet. This run of games gives Rangers a chance to find out.
Yeah, on Cortez, I know we've spoken a lot about Chefty and Ingerman and now Sial and Rangers being able to identify talent from new markets and recruit well. And the fact that they were willing to contribute that much of a transfer fee to Cortez tells you how highly they rated his potential. He's someone that had been tracked, I believe, since the 2023 under 23 South American Championships, and he's one of the stands out for Colombia. Again, we've made this point before. He didn't arrive with injury issues. He's 20 years old. Is he just going to have this 1 year in his career where he's really unavailable, and then he manages to put together some football after? You'd hope so for his sake, but there's clearly a lot of potential there that Rangers have saw fit to invest in Chris, because they signed him after an injury. They signed him after last season. But yeah, we will wait and see. Finally, before we close, Igerman, Danilo Dessers. Danilo, again, someone who's just not been able to... The run in his team before his latest injury was the longest run he's had as a Rangers player, which again just shows a player who's not been available enough. His quality and his impact is obvious when he does play. The difficulty is how consistent can that be? It's important that Cyril Dessers has had a good month. He might have a bad month next, because his Rangers career tends to follow these patterns. But that Union performance does make me think, as he turned a little bit of a corner, that he can do it more consistently. One thing I would not like to see more of is Igerman not playing as the number 9. I don't mind if he starts as a number 9 and he drifts wide, but he's not a out-and-out number 10. Dundee United away, I thought it was okay because it was a kind of end-to-end game. But stop that experiment, please. I say, Chris, what about you?
Agreed. I think that motion has passed with a fairly overwhelming majority of Rangers review watchers. I think Igerman has, again, as we've touched on over the last couple of months, he's just been a breath of fresh air. It's given Rangers such a different dimension in that area of the pitch. His goals and his impact and the tricks and the flicks, it makes Rangers more enjoyable to watch, and that's in a season when they've not been overly enjoyable to watch at times. That he's been something different, and it's understandable why the fans have really taken him to their hearts. Dessers, of late has been good. I think people are quick to give him a hard time when his performance levels are not there. So it's only fair that you then give a bit of credit and a bit of praise when the performances are there. It's the Danilo question is the tricky one. I wouldn't be surprised if Dessers moves on in the summer. There will be interest in a man come the summer, and Rangers will make a huge profit on him. It's what do you then do with Danilo? What do you do with £6 million worth of Brazilian who has clearly got talent, who can score goals, but he's got this reputation amongst the fans of he's always injured, and I think a number of his injuries they're really unfortunate ones. But sometimes players just have bad luck, and having bad luck right now is just no use. Now you can't account for the way that you get smashed up at St Johnstone. That was just a freak injury. You can't account for the knee injury he picked up at Hearts. It's just 99 times he goes into that situation, he emerges with the ball, and history paints a very different picture. The injuries he's had this season, obviously had to work his way back from that knee injury, then picked up the shoulder knock, and again it's just an unfortunate one. You go into a challenge and you just come off worse. So he does seem to have really bad luck, but Rangers can't really afford players with bad luck. Rangers need players on the pitch, and they certainly need good players on the pitch. So spoke earlier on about interesting to see what they do at centre half, and expecting maybe one to come in. You could easily go into next season and all three of those names are no longer here for one reason or the other. So that paints a very different picture heading into this season. But for what's left now, if Danilo can get back fit, I think he definitely provides an option, and also provides an option at number 10 instead of Barrie. I think he could combine well with Higaman. But he's obviously the Moroccan one. He's the guy that 9 times out of 10 has to be leading the line, because he's so different and so much better, and it makes Rangers a better side when he's on form.
Definitely right, Chris. We'll leave it there. I realised we did not get to any comments because we were so enthused talking about the Rangers squad depth chart. So what we'll do is, Stevie, I think it's yourself and Stevie on tomorrow morning. Chris, people get a break from my voice. So we'll make that a your questions answered special, presuming nothing dramatic happens between now and then, which you never know with in the world of Rangers. So we'll create that stream slightly early. So if there's questions you want to get to Chris Jack or Stevie Clifford about the world of Rangers, please do, and we will get to them tomorrow morning. Until then, do subscribe to the YouTube channel if you've not done so already. It's free, really helps us to continue doing these videos, and subscribe to the Rangers Review website as well for all the best coverage week to week, day to day, month to month, as we continue on a busy season, even if there is no midweek game this week. But until then, thank you to Chris for joining me. As ever, thanks to you all for watching, and we'll speak to you soon. Bye for now.